Hello and welcome to Six Figure Souls Doing Good and Making Money. This is a very special season 7 where I'm highlighting my co-authors of our new collaborative book project, The Ultimate Guide to Becoming a Successful Soul Professional, 25 Powerful Strategies for Soul-Aligned Entrepreneurs. I am your host, Camille Miller, lead author for the book and pioneer of the soul professional movement. Today we are interviewing Femi Ayanabdejo, founder, digital tech company, human performance expert, motivational speaker, NFL veteran, and Super Bowl champ. Femi, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Camille. How you doing?
I'm doing fabulous. Thank you.
Excellent.
So interested to have this conversation with you. But before we start, I want to hear, or at least share with our audience, a little bit about your background, how you ended up where you are today, and then we'll talk about, the book and writing your success story. But you have such an interesting background. So you want to share a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I'll try to give you the 5-minute version because it
Yeah.
can easily become a 50-minute version, right? So, was born in Chicago, Illinois. My father came to the U.S. from Nigeria, so he immigrated here. My mom's family is Irish Catholic, came to the U.S. during the potato famine from Ireland. After my brother and I were born in Chicago, we moved back to Nigeria with my father and my mom, and my family owns quite a bit of land, and I have quite a big family back in Lagos, Nigeria.
Okay.
And for quite a few years, we lived without running water or electricity for stretches of time. But there was a lot of good times there too, and I touch on that in my chapter of the book quite a bit, so I'll save that. No spoilers.
Awesome.
But the struggle really began when we left Nigeria due to a tragic death of one of my half brothers. And we moved back with nothing. We moved back into poverty. We ended up living in a housing project, gunfire, gangs, drugs, prostitution. But somehow, some way, my mom found a way to get my brother and my sister and I a scholarship to a Catholic school, not the public school near the housing project that we lived in, but a Catholic school about a mile and a half away. Purely random. One family was chosen to get this scholarship, and all the kids get it. We happen to be the family. I don't know how that happened, but my mom worked it out. She was a teacher as well. And, the cool thing about living where we lived, there was a park called Hamlin Park, about 2 blocks away from the housing project that we lived in. And that park was my safe haven. It wasn't always safe, but that's where I learned to play sports. That's where I learned to compete. And those kind of disciplined, dedicated, practice-laden skill sets were learned in that park. Football, baseball, basketball, year-round, basically, for 6-7 years there before we moved to California. Yeah. Ended up moving to California when I was 11. And, once we moved into a safe environment, Maslow's hierarchy of needs are important because they're real, and I've experienced them. It's one thing to try to find a way to survive and shelter and eat, but when you can be safe and that all those things are taken care of, you can really excel and self-actualize, right? And really become the best version of yourself. And I didn't really get to tap into that until we left Chicago and moved to Santa Cruz, where my dad did his PhD at UC Santa Cruz, and we ended up living in family student housing. And that was really the jump off point for my family and I. That includes my brother, who also is an entrepreneur, who also has an MBA, who also played over a decade in the NFL, and who also has a Super Bowl ring with the Baltimore Ravens. I won a Super Bowl in the 2000 Ravens. My brother,
wow,
12 Ravens, yeah. So I got my football scholarship to San Diego State. He got a football scholarship to UCLA. So you kind of see this tit for tat, this closest bond my brother and I have.
Wow, yeah.
A big part of my story. I don't cover a ton of that in the book. The book is very focused on me, my trauma, my experiences, my resilience, the things that I've learned through difficult situations, managing those situations and excelling through those situations. And I would say that after my scholarship to San Diego State, and then signing an undrafted rookie free agent deal with the Minnesota Vikings, which then led to this 11-year NFL career. When I ultimately retired, I knew I wanted to be in human performance. And that pushed me to become a certified nutritionist, which I still am today, a personal trainer, which I no longer am, but also the co-founder of the high-end fitness facility in San Diego, which I co-founded with 3 other entrepreneurs, 3 other personal trainers and fitness experts. And after about 5 years of that, I really got enamored with tracking devices like Fitbit and Garmin and Apple Watch and things like that. Now, back in 2010, when these devices hit the market, I think Garmin and Fitbit were kind of like the market leaders at that point. But I knew that these tools were going to revolutionize fitness and revolutionize health and fitness data and personalize it. I
Right.
started studying AI and machine learning and all these very learned things that were kind of out of my comfort zone, but I loved it, which then pushed me to do my MBA at Johns Hopkins. And HealthReel, my digital health company, was my capstone project at Johns Hopkins. And through that process, I learned a ton about fundraising and marketing and branding. I started writing more. I started guest speaking more through the Ravens and the Ravens Legends community, which is basically all the former retired Ravens. I am back in Baltimore. I've been back in Baltimore since 2010. I'm sorry, since 2014. And the Ravens and Hopkins and NASA and these institutions here on the East Coast are a big part of my story over the last decade. And the book touches on some of that. I am a first in numerous things in regard to Hopkins and NASA and the Ravens and things like that. But a lot of that's covered in the book, so I'll kind of save that. But as you can see, I love to learn. I love to push myself. I love to test myself. And I always want to make sure that when I'm talking to people about resilience and trauma, and how trauma can be a weight or it can be fuel, it all starts up here. And if this isn't right, nothing else matters. So although I am a human performance expert, everything I do is rooted in psychology and mental and emotional health. And a big part of that is because my stepdad got his PhD in psychology. I got my undergrad degree in psychology. It was an accident that I happened to start at the right place. Pure accident, purely random. But as I started to really understand how the mind works and how the body follows, I was like, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be in regard to mental clarity and using the mind as the platform and the modality or the medium for health improvement, self-health, and just excelling in self-actualization.
Wow. I also had my undergrad in psychology and an MBA, and I felt that it gave me a window into the human brain, especially in organizational psychology or marketing, like how people think through things. So I thought that was a great thing that very few people probably pair on purpose.
Yes,
Right.
agreed.
It was
Yeah.
totally an accident for me too. I went in counseling psychology. I ended up not liking it and then started business through health. And it was just kind of brought me where I am. But I feel like all of those steps were important to put me where I am today. And
I,
even as a leader in leadership.
yeah. You know
Yeah.
what's interesting is I studied economics for a year back at San Diego State, my undergrad alma mater, before I went to Hopkins, just to get myself uh, um, acclimated to being back in school and the rigor of school. And I
Yeah.
studied microeconomics. And I think microeconomics, if you think about the rational actor, it is a perfect blend of psychology and business. That's what microeconomics is to me. You know what I mean? When
Yeah.
you think about it, it's
Yeah.
not a perfect seamless thing, but
I get it.
it does stick together. And I think that's what fascinated. I didn't know microeconomics was going to be that, but when I got into the classroom and I started learning, I go, oh, this is psychology. This is how the rational actor with their pocketbook and their money and how they value and demand and supply and all these different things and how you price things and I won't go down a rabbit hole on economics and business jargon right now, but I felt like, oh yeah, this MBA is for me perfect. If I enjoy this, everyone's like, if you enjoy that, you're going to enjoy your MBA because microeconomics can be crazy. I was like, no, I loved it. I thought it really got me primed for the MBA.
Yeah. Did you get your degrees after the MBA in your career or did you get it before?
I know I got
After.
my psychology degree.
Yeah. Well, that was
I got
before the
yeah, I got
master's.
that. Yeah, my bachelor's degree. I got that while I was playing football at San Diego
Yeah.
State.
I meant
Yeah.
the MBA. You went
Oh
back
yeah,
to
I'm sorry.
school
Yeah, I went back.
after?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
went back to school. Yeah. So when I retired from the NFL in 2010, I had the training facility from 2010 to 2014. Sold everything, my house, my furniture in my house. If it didn't fit in my Tahoe, I left it back in San Diego. Sold the equity in my business.
Wow.
Jumped in my Tahoe, moved back to Maryland to be closer to my kids because my kids
Okay.
were here in Maryland,
Okay.
and that's when I began my MBA. Was 2014.
Okay.
Yeah, and I finished that in 2016. So I just did a 2-year full-time program.
So I'm curious because our listeners are mostly entrepreneurs starting out or trying to get to that next level of success. So when you finish your MBA, of course, I know that you were already well known, but who did you surround yourself with? Because I think that's so important for entrepreneurs. Who you surround yourself with helps with your success. So clearly you had a successful circle that you were also hanging around with.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is that some of my professors are still people that I talk to and collaborate with right now. So
Yeah.
I actually have another company that is a data analytics company focused around the NFL. I actually co-founded that with a professor who mentored me while I was at Hopkins. So
Wow.
I was surrounded by very learned people, very driven people, people that have, a lot of professors are also entrepreneurs, right?
Mhm.
It's
Yes.
one thing to teach theory. It's
Yeah.
another thing to actually teach
Do it.
things about how things actually go down in the wild, right?
Yep.
Like in real
Yep.
life. And so I was so focused on what I wanted to build and how to get there. I, I didn't really, maybe it wasn't a conscious thought, but some of the people that helped me build my business, they're the attorneys, the lawyers, the engineers, folks from Hopkins, folks from NASA. I'm a NASA technology transfer partner. I'm the first athlete to ever do that. And basically what that means is that NASA has a bunch of technology that they built for the space program, and not all of it gets used. And NASA laboratories have basically this virtual Rolodex of IP and algorithms, mainly software. I
Mhm.
believe they do have some hardware, but I wasn't interested in that. And you can acquire this as an American citizen, and you can augment what you're building with these algorithms that you acquire from these laboratories. And so
Mhm.
I was the first athlete in history to actually partner with NASA, acquire an algorithm, and then implement it into a platform. And then since
Wow.
then, I have been helping NASA mentor NBA athletes, NFL athletes, WNBA athletes. We have these NASA boot camps, and I'm the use case. I'm the study. I'm the real life example. And so I've become friends with some of these athletes, current and former, and I show them how to navigate this tech transfer roadmap. So I do that quite a bit as well. So I got my fingers in a lot of different things right now.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the schoolyard. Um, because I find it so interesting. I did not know that you also had a brother
Yeah.
that has that same thing. So clearly there was something, not only the talent, but there was also the mindset that was happening, that you both went for that, achieved that, had that competitiveness. What do you think were some of the things that happened around your childhood that brought you to that level? Because I
Yeah, I
think
think
that's like a common thread that I also see in entrepreneurs, that I was a college athlete, but I also see that it's a common thread that entrepreneurs were in some type of leadership, or they always took leadership roles. They were team captains. They worked in groups too, and they become amazing leaders
yeah, I
because of
think
the dynamics of it.
Yeah, I think my brother and I, we don't like to mess around. You know what I mean? Like we don't just do something for the sake of doing it. We don't waste time. I think we have this genetic strategic gene.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like where
Yeah.
everything we do has to have a purpose and be taking us in a direction. Now we might always not make we may not make the right choice all the time, but we fail fast, learn fast, iterate fast, adapt fast, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what we do.
Important
And
lessons.
and me being the oldest of three, I can make mistakes, and my brother could learn from those mistakes and do it better. Hence the
Yeah.
fact that I went to San Diego State and he went to UCLA. Both good schools. Yeah, both good schools, both competitive programs, but I think most kids would say that if I could play football at San Diego State and be a starter, or go to UCLA and be a starter, I'd probably go to UCLA. You
Right.
know what I mean? That's probably, and if
Yeah.
you look at the network, the UCLA network's probably a little better than San Diego State network, but it's all good. It's just the reality of it. And I think that um, being the first, or blazing a trail, comes with its bumps. There's no windshield to protect you from what you're going to run into. I was able to do that for my brother for many, many years,
That's, yeah.
and so, I think that he was my first competition. He was my first collaborator. He was my first friend. He was my first enemy. He was my first everything. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think that iron sharpens iron thing, that's real. That's very real when you have two boys who are crazy and driven and competitive and want to be the best. But also as they get older, they learn to have a little grace, not just with themselves, but with each other and other people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that we were very good test subjects for each other, and we could learn from each other. And ultimately, some of it was probably a little bit of luck, and some of it was just hardwired in us. And
Yeah.
I think my mom made sure she couldn't control everything. And at a certain point, we're just too big and too out there doing our own thing. She just put us in the right environment, and then we figured it out. Put us in the right environment, we're going to figure it out. It's a very difficult thing to delineate out, but because that would take us like 2 or 3 hours probably.
Right.
But
I
at
agree.
high level, I think you're picking up what I'm putting down, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So I think it takes a lot of confidence, which I think you also get in sports, right?
Yeah.
And camaraderie. There's a lot that gets taken out of that. Leadership, working with others in a team.
Absolutely.
A lot of entrepreneurs are very single-minded, and they don't realize it's everyone else has a gift, has a talent that they are good in, and you need that. Right. Just like you said, your attorneys, your accountants, there's so many people on the team that help, right? That make it. And I'm curious though, do you feel that you were riskier in any other way, that you took risks to get you to your success? That
Absolutely. I'm a calculated risk taker.
I am as well.
Most people would not leave a 6-figure job in the fitness business as a co-founder with a book of clients that was only growing and sell it and go to grad school with no job and sell everything and move across the country. Yeah. Very few people would do that. I saw that as one step back to take 10 steps forward. You know what I mean? Which is what it was. Plus, you can't quantify the value of being around your kids all the time. And that was the thing. My kids were in Baltimore. I was in California. Their mom and I were together for 10 years. We were never married, but she's from here. She's not from California. Yeah. It's not her responsibility to make my parenting easier. It's my responsibility to make her parenting easier. And I accepted that challenge, and I knew it in my gut that I would be better for it. And 10 years after the fact, my daughter's graduating from high school. My son's a sophomore. And I know for a fact in my heart and in my mind, they would not be as good of humans as they are if I wasn't here holding them accountable.
Beautiful.
I know that for a fact. And mom does a great job. But mom's only one person. She can't do it all. She can't be everything. She can't be mom and dad. I need to be dad. She needs to be mom. And we definitely are androgynous when it comes to male female roles. Like, that's some bullshit to me. I don't care about any of that stuff. I'm a big guy and I'm athletic and I'm strong, but that's not how I think. My body is just what carries me. It's just my vehicle of movement to some degree. Right. And I'm being a little facetious when I say that, but what I'm saying is that I don't believe in gender specific roles. I believe in doing what you're good at and being the best parent you can be in the lanes that your kids will let you be in. And the more grace you have with your kids and the more accountable and trustworthy you are and less judgmental and harsh you are, it's amazing how many lanes kids will open up for you to be involved with them. I learned that, and I'm living it. And so the thing I'm most proud of, which I don't know if I would have said this 5 years ago, I might have said like graduating from Hopkins is probably one of the biggest achievements of my life. But no, it's watching my kids go from babies to toddlers to these, young kids to teenagers to young adults. Yeah. And to be such good humans, to see them operate, to watch them at a restaurant, say thank you and shake someone's hand and look them in the eye and tell them their name and speak proudly and just be an observer. That is what I'm absolutely most proud of. They're going to go out into the world and do some amazing stuff because I was there as a parent.
Yeah. And they watched you.
Absolutely.
Right? I see that my kids kind of inherit that piece because they watch me every day work. Right. And they see how it is. And it's very curious as mine are in their 20s, just entering the work world, doing their first resumes and cover letters and talking to people. And it's so interesting to see how they navigate it because they actually do it with a very entrepreneurial mind.
You know what's interesting, Camille, is that when I do a lot of my guest speaking, the business segment is irrelevant. The number of people is irrelevant. A lot of what I speak to is so agnostic and it's so fundamental to any type of optimized partnership, collaboration, relationship, ROI, you name it, because I get down to an equation that's really focused. I have these 4 pillars of self-help. So in the chapter that I wrote, I cover one portion of one pillar. There's actually 4 pillars in my methodology.
Okay.
And the most important pillar to me is survival and trauma. Because if you can't survive and you can't manage your trauma, you'll be in this loop that you can't get out of. Wherever you go, there you are. You can leave, you can fly, you can hide, you can get fired, you can get a new job, but wherever you go, there you are if you don't deal with that. That's the most important thing. Second is this pillar that's called the self-awareness pillar. And the equation that I love, it's so simplistic and I use it the most. Self-awareness plus selflessness equals self-actualization. What does that mean? That means when I know what I need and I'm mindful of what someone else needs, and maybe I have an ancillary role in some type of product that we're developing or some type of deliverable. Maybe I'm not the leader this time. And being an athlete and being in sports and helping people collaborate with things, maybe I'm not always the featured person. So I have to be selfless to some degree. And I have to trust at some point that my selflessness, based on this culture of self-awareness that we're trying to propagate, everybody will understand that whoever is leading, whoever's in charge, or whatever the goal is, we're all singular minded and we're all going to be selfless, because at some point that selflessness will be rewarded for. And maybe we'll be the feature, we'll be the focal point, maybe we'll be the quarterback in the next situation. The team will recognize that in this particular deliverable, it is my job to help so-and-so lead, perform, and execute. And it always comes full circle. I 100% believe that there is a karmic, kind of universal karmic energy that what you put out, and I know this sounds a little cliche, it really does come back to you. And understanding that you may not get the credit here or now, but eventually you will if you stay the course and you have character, you're determined, you're honest, you communicate, and you really believe in that self-awareness plus selflessness equals self-actualization equation.
Wow, that's amazing. Do you feel that there's a purpose greater than yourself?
Absolutely. I don't know what it is, but every day I feel it, I sense it. I get discouraged sometimes because we live in a world where people lie, they cheat, they're misinformed, they take advantage of people that assume good intent. They take advantage of people that want to do good things. And guess what? I don't mind that so much. You know, I don't mind it. I don't ever let someone burning me, lying from me, stealing from me, or cheating from me stop me from my mission. It's just a bump in the road. It makes me lean in more, not lean out. You know, a lot of people get their heart broken and they don't want to ever fall in love again. That's not the way you do it. No, you do it again. You fall in love over and over and over and over until you don't need to do it anymore. You know what I mean? And that core thing applies to everything. That could be business. That could be learning a new skill. You keep going until you find the right thing. You don't ever stop. You don't ever quit. You don't ever give up. And who cares if it hurts? That's part of the damn process. It's supposed to hurt. If it didn't hurt, it wouldn't mean as much.
It's your lesson, right?
Yes.
And I'm a big believer that the universe will just keep bringing you back that lesson to you.
Yeah, exactly. And guess what? And if you put out some crazy stuff into the universe, that's what you'll get.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like if you're negative,
A mirror.
This is the thing. In my opinion, truth is rooted in data and superstition is rooted in fear.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not 100%, but generally speaking, we come up with these superstitions because of fear. Oh, if I don't do this the right way, it's not going to work. If I don't line up this and I don't put on the color shirt and I don't have this hat, this lucky thing, it's not going to work. That's fear. But when you root yourself in information, let me not say truth, because truth can be subjective. Someone can believe in a truth and they're not lying, they're just misinformed.
Right.
Fact is data driven. And one of my pillars is about fact, communication, and information as well. That's actually the second pillar. So I have a very comprehensive, simplistic, it's probably not simplistic for most people, but once they see the full architecture, they'll be like, oh, wow, I actually see how pillar 1 and 4 make sense, and why pillar 1 is here and pillar 4 is there and not vice versa, and why 2 is where it's supposed to be and 3 is where it's supposed to be, because there's kind of an order of operation in life. Now, life has a way of throwing things at you in all kinds of different ways, but you can make order out of chaos if you want to. Or you can just be Game of Thrones-ish and to be like, chaos is a ladder. You know, if you want to, you know, I'm a big Game of Thrones fan, so you can look at it that way too. It's completely up to you. But at the end of the day, there has to be a rhyme and reason and some strategy, some purpose, something that's driving you. It just can't be an empty mind and an empty heart just going about your business. That doesn't sound like fun to me.
Yeah. What do you think the driver is in you?
I would say that for me, my mission is to help people stop living a suboptimal lifestyle and be engaged and be the best version of themselves. I want everyone to be optimized. And
Yeah.
everything I do is pretty much rooted in that. If you think about human performance, what is it? It's optimization. When you think about motivational speaking, what is it? It's optimization. When you think about me doing, going and talking to kids, or you name it, everything I do is really rooted in helping people be better. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm perfect, right? Helping others be better, I still have to check myself every once in a while and make sure I'm doing the right things as well. I have to live what I preach. And to sit here and say that I'm 100% on all that is a lie. I'm not. But there is a thing in my self checklist of my own kind of behavior, actions, is that I'm very quick to recognize when I need to fix something, change something, say I'm sorry. Two
Yeah.
of the most powerful words in the world. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? So I'm trying my best to be an example of what I'm teaching by living it to the fullest. But within that concept, I still have a good time. I still have fun. I still do things that aren't healthy. I still go out there and do things that, because I'm living, that we're humans, right? There's certain, so what I want people to remember too is that be rooted in happiness, not pleasure, because happiness is a journey. Pleasure is fleeting. You know what I mean? Things that are pleasurable are fleeting. Happiness is rooted in an outcome that is strategy driven and action item based. Like, pleasure can be a brownie, pleasure can be a glass of wine, and you can earn that, but that's not happiness. You know what I mean? I look at happiness and pleasure completely differently. I'm trying to be happy with a little pleasure here and there. I'm not trying to live this pleasured life where everything is just, oh, this is so amazing, and oh my God, like that's just not reality. Everything can't be pleasurable. There's got to be, for every action, there's kind of like an equal and opposite reaction, right? As Einstein said. So for everything that you do that's positive, you kind of got to work it. You got to earn it. I believe in earning my happiness.
Yeah.
And I feel happy because of it. I feel like pleasure is almost like a shortcut. It's almost like
It's a moment. That's what I'm hearing. Like,
totally.
A moment, a glass of wine, but that wine is filled or you finish the bottle.
That's
and
it.
Then what?
Yes.
You're usually not so happy afterwards.
Exactly.
Right? Happiness is a way of like a lifestyle. I get it.
I totally agree. And I think what
Yeah.
we have to do is, what we have to remember is, we need to get caught up in the happy things, not the pleasurable things. And we need to earn those pleasurable things. The pleasurable things can't become the norm, because in my opinion, that's where addiction is rooted.
Right.
That's where negative outcomes are rooted. They're rooted in chasing pleasure. Chase happiness.
They're
That's
dopamine rushes. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely agree. Love that.
Yep.
All right. I want to change gears a little bit and talk about the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this is your first time being an author. What made you decide to do a chapter in our book?
Yeah, so I've been a creative writer like most of my life, whether it's poetry. I've written some op-eds. I wrote something for Michael Smerconish, who has a show on POTUS and is on CNN quite a bit. So I've always wanted to write a book, and I actually started to write a book during COVID. But I felt like there was something missing in the way I was collaborating with this author that was kind of helping me. And so I kind of shelved that. And then when this opportunity came along, there's some very traumatic experiences that I went through that I think could have resulted in me not even being alive today, or maybe me not being the version of who I am right now. Some other suboptimal, not as effective. There's a lot of other words I could say, but I'm trying to be very careful with my wording on how I talk about what could have happened versus what did happen. And so I felt like there are things that I could share that would be inspirational. There are things that I could share that would be helpful in regard to avoiding impulsive responses to traumatic events. And I feel like maybe my story, when you guys read it, will save some lives. And there are some things that I've never shared with anybody that are in that chapter. And it was very difficult to write. It's still difficult right now in my mind. I'm still nervous that it's going to be put out there, and there's no going back now. You know?
That's common.
I was very transparent and honest about the events in my life that I think put me on the path that I'm on.
I love that. And what was your overall thoughts after you completed your chapter? Because I feel like so many times it's a release.
Yes.
And do you feel like you're a different person at this moment? I was like, when I first wrote my first book, when just getting my story out there, I went through nervous, oh my God, everyone's going to know my story now. And I've kept it quiet for all this time. And then I felt like I was redefined. Like once it got out there, I was like, okay, I'm like owning this now. Because it was the only really way to go forward, right? I just owned it, and like now I up leveled. Like I feel like now this is my first level.
Yeah. I can relate to that. I don't know. You might have to ask me like 4 or 5 months or 6 months after
it launches.
Yeah. So I feel it was cathartic for sure. You know what I mean? Like there are things in there that I needed to get off my chest. But I feel like there's still some discussions I need to have with some people that I haven't had. So to have those discussions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are going to be surprised by what they read. But like I said, I think a lot of people are going to be inspired and hopefully will decide to stay on this earth a little longer and put their best foot forward as a result as well.
Oh, beautiful. Femi, how can people get in touch with you or learn more about you?
Yeah. So if anybody wants to have me come speak to their company, and once again, I speak to all kinds of different companies, and I speak to people of all different age ranges, from kids that are in elementary school to MBA students at Hopkins to Fortune 500 companies. So my Twitter handle is Obafemi30. My Instagram handle is Obafemi30. Can I share my email? I mean, I don't mind.
If you want.
Yeah, we'll save the email for that.
I was going to say, I don't think that's what you want to do, but I would send them to a website or to learn more about your work.
Yeah, they can go to HealthReel.com, and HealthReel is spelled HealthReel.com, like a movie reel, not like real life reel. So HealthReel.com. And they can find me on LinkedIn under Femi Devin Ayanabdejo Sr. LinkedIn is actually really good. I pay attention to all my social sites. I manage all my own stuff. So yeah, definitely feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah, awesome. LinkedIn, that's how we were introduced.
That's true.
And that's how, LinkedIn, I think, is a huge, huge tool for people.
Totally
I want to thank you for being a co-author with me in our book and for being on our podcast today.
Can I say one last thing?
You most certainly will.
I didn't say the name of the chapter. So
I'm sorry. That's my fault. I didn't ask.
I think my chapter is chapter 7.
Okay.
And it is entitled Trauma, the Key to Evolution.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That is a good one. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today and being an author. And I can't wait to read your chapter.
Thank you very much, Camille. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. For more information about the Soul Professional Movement, you can go to soulprofessional.com. This podcast is sponsored by the Natural Life Business Partnership, a global professional organization and business incubator for the soul-aligned entrepreneur. If you live in a higher vibration, have an alternative approach to business, and want to help repair the world, join us at our next meet and greet. To find out more, you can go to soulprofessional.com to find the next date. Thank you, everyone. Bye, Femi.